And Scott Aitchison joins me now. Mr. Aitchison, good to see you. Thanks for taking time to speak with me today. I do appreciate it.
Oh, Peter, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Look, you lamented the personal attacks and the divisions in the debate last week. You called the partisan cheating for the party. And I guess I'm wondering, who do you think's to blame for and that behavior in the campaign so far?
Well, I think it's decades of political discourse that's been designed to divide us. You look at what goes on in the House of Commons and how our political war rooms operate. It's all about slicing and dicing the electorate to, win over a few votes over here versus over there. We've seen language really on, in both major parties about, language that seeks to divide. And I think it's just regular political discourse, and I'm bound and determined that we're going to improve it.
But do you think there's any one of the candidates that's particularly, determining that tone and leading that kind of discourse as you described?
No, listen, I'm not going to talk about my other candidates in this race. They're colleagues, they're people that I'm getting to know, and they all have their particular passion for Canada and what they're trying to do. What I would like to do, though, is talk about ideas.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk about policies that actually make sense for Canadians. And I'm looking forward to that at this next debate coming up in Edmonton. I want to hear how, each of the different campaigns, how they propose to actually create some action and get things done on the housing file, for example. We have a crisis in this country, and it's not just first-time home buyers. It's not just people looking for an affordable rental. It's not just, there's a spectrum of housing, and there's a crisis. It's not enough to just acknowledge there's a problem. We need to do more because we've seen 7 years of a government that's been, I think, very well-meaning on the file and promising billions. We've seen countless photo ops on funding announcements, but very few ribbon cuttings. Okay. And we need action on this. And I'd like to hear some of my opponents' ideas on what they would do to happen.
Yeah, I think everybody would. And I just to close the loop on. You warned that Canadians won't elect your party if they see these kinds of divisions on display and Conservatives talking about conspiracy theories. But look, as well as I that leadership races aren't about Canadian voters. They're about Conservative members and their votes. And some candidates clearly pay off to have some very raw, open fights with leadership opponents. And I guess I want to know from you, what is it you think they're missing if they take that approach?
Well, and my for not just my opponents in the race, it's for Conservative members as well, and all Canadians, frankly. If we want to expand our Conservative movement, if we want to win government, let me back up. If we have to expand the people that are interested, the number of people that are interested in voting for us. And so our movement has to grow. And the only way we're going to do that is if we have the courage and the character and the respect amongst ourselves. We have to be able to disagree without being disagreeable. We have to be open to listening to each other and with respect. Colleagues in the caucus, for example, that I don't agree with the way they vote sometimes, and they don't agree with the way I vote sometimes. But we are friends, and we find common ground in the things that common ground on, and we don't fight. We need to do that as a movement. So my message is not just to the other leadership, all Conservatives. We must work together. We must show that we can be respectful of each other and respectful of all Canadians.
But a lot of the fingers are pointing at Mr. Poilievre for setting this tone. Do you believe the Conservative Party can win the country if Pierre Poilievre's the leader?
Regardless of who the leader is at the end of this race, we all have to come together. And I'm not going to comment specifically on any particular candidate. We will definitely come together, and whatever happens to me in this race, I'm going to certainly play a role in that. I'd like to demonstrate my leadership abilities as the leader of the party and show that leadership is about inspiring the people around. And that's the way I lead. It's the way we need to make sure our next leader of our Conservative Party does.
There's been a lot of discussion about the abortion issue, in particular in recent days, and how what we're seeing in the United States leadership race, and perhaps provide a greater role for pro-life party members in determining the outcome of the race. You've stated you're pro-choice and will defend a woman's right to choose. What role do you think the abortion issue could play in determining the outcome of the leadership race?
Well, I think it'll play a role just like every other issue. I think there are bigger issues that Canadians are dealing with right now, unfortunately, what goes on in the United States does tend to trickle into our politics as well, and that's certainly why I address the issue. But again, this is another example of where, as conservatives, we need to respect each other. I know there are a lot of members of our caucus that don't have the same opinion and don't have the same beliefs that I have. But we can still talk to each other. We can still respect each other. And there are lots of things that we can be doing. In fact, it's one of the points that I made in some of my messaging around this particular issue is that I think it's important for us to find common ground. And I think one of the areas we can find common ground with folks in our movement in our country who are not pro-choice is to make sure that we're supporting organizations that give all the information available, give information to women so they can make their own informed choice. Leslie Lewis has mentioned Pregnancy Care Centers Canada. It's an organization that provides information for women, and that's all they do. And they provide support if it's requested. So I think there's an area where I know we can find common ground. Not pro-choice, not pro-life, but be pro-woman.
I know I be a chance here to put in the stand for, and in this context, you want to do away with supply management. You want to increase defense spending to 2% of GDP. You want to boost housing supply by municipalities if they ease development restrictions. You oppose a carbon tax, just as the other candidates do. And a little bit about you. You're a former real estate agent, former mayor of Huntsville, Ontario, a rural guy, if I can say it. Why do you believe you're the best choice to lead the party?
I've got the experience of actual leadership, actually getting things done. It is, of course, at the municipal level, but housing is a great example. When I was mayor of Huntsville, I led a council that was engaged on this issue, and we pulled out all the stops. We gave land to organizations like Habitat for Humanity and private developers if they signed agreements with us to make sure a certain number of rental units were affordable. What was missing for us there was a reliable federal partner, though. I know how to get things done on the ground. I know how to speak the language of municipal mayors and municipal planners. I've been writing 2 official plans, zoning bylaws. I've chaired planning committee. I understand how that works, how the rubber hits the road. And it's going to take a collaborative approach, which is the approach that I always take. Because prime ministers don't wave magic wands and tell the provinces what to do. We've got to work together. We've got to work with municipalities and the private sector. I've got a huge track record of building those relationships, getting those kinds of projects done, doing it in a collaborative way. And so that's what I bring to potentially leadership of the party. It's what I would bring as a prime minister, collaboration.
All right. Well, you've certainly made the case for a different kind of candidates. I'll get together Wednesday evening in Edmonton, Alberta, and we'll see you on that stage that night as well. Scott Aitchison, thanks for your time tonight. Good to talk to you, and take care.
Thanks, Peter.